Welcome to Smart Branding, a podcast dedicated to branding, naming, and domain names. I'm Tatiana Bonneau, and with my guests, we try to help you create and grow strong, memorable, and meaningful brands online. I believe time is one of our most precious assets, and so I want to thank you in advance if you decide to spend the next 30 minutes with us. I promise to do my best to make those worth it. Let's go! So today my guest is Donna Serdula. She is a specialist in LinkedIn branding and optimization with a decade of experience helping professionals unlock their full potential on the platform. Hello, and thank you for making the time, Donna. Wonderful to have you with us.
Oh, my pleasure, Tatiana. Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start with my classic first question. Give me a bit of a background. Like, how did you get into what you do? It's a very particular thing. So talk to me about that.
And I started, 2009, and that was well before LinkedIn was really a household name as it is today. But I was in sales and marketing for years, and I was in a very high pressured sales environment. And it was during that time that I was doing a lot of networking, a lot of just cold calling. And I realized how much, the LinkedIn profile played a role in all of this. And this was early. But I recognize that people want to know who they're doing business with. They want to know who you are. They want more insight. And, oftentimes people were Googling to find out more. And, the only pertinent result then, as well as even today, is that LinkedIn profile. And it is so robust. And back in the day, it was always, it's just your resume, but it's so much more. And that was really, for me, that's when I realized, that was like my epiphany. It's hard to write about yourself. It's really hard to tell your story, to know your value, to see your strengths. And you need someone to turn to, someone who can, pull this out of you, but then put it out there in a manner that's, authentic and real. And so that's why I started my company. And here we are, 8,000 profiles later.
Wow, very cool. And absolutely agree with you that it's so important. Like I do that all the time, and I can see who's viewed my profile, so I can see people do that with me all the time. I deal with premium domain names, so I talk to people like, every day that inquiring about a particular name, or they have some naming needs, and we look at each other's profile all the time, like you say. And it's another thing that's funny is my son, the eldest, just turned 18, and he just got accepted to university. And the couple of months ago, I was like, 18, okay, like I'm starting to think, he's gonna have to start presenting himself in a more professional way, start thinking about future jobs and whatever. So I was like, have you created your LinkedIn profile? It's like, yeah, mom, I've done that. It's like, okay, well, why not it's connected to me?
So the question becomes, though, it's not, do you have a LinkedIn profile, but do you have a good
one? Exactly.
Goal-oriented one.
Absolutely. And the funny, well, it's probably not funny, but like you say, it's so important, and we don't even think about it. Like, we don't verbalize it. And I think rarely we think, unless you're out of a job and you look for one, and then you probably I'm going to ask you a question on that, but then you probably start throwing stuff into it to fit that particular job that you want now. But we don't think about it much. And I've had times where I would look somebody up that I'm preparing a conversation with them, and they would be just like, well, nothing, or just a name, or not even a picture, or you see that there's been no activity for years, and you're like, is that person even real? What's happening?
or are they even relevant? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. On that, tell me, what would you say are the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to their LinkedIn profile?
I think
you probably have a long list.
I have a long list. Yeah, I think one of them is really understanding why you're on LinkedIn and what you're trying to accomplish, but also thinking in terms of your target audience and what do they need to know about you and what do you want to present to them, right? It's really about being very strategic and recognizing that sometimes people are on LinkedIn for a job, but sometimes they're on it for sales, for prospecting. Others are on it because, they know that people are looking at them and they want to really make sure that they're representing the right image, so it's reputation management, it's branding. And some are doing it more for expertise, to really showcase this is what I know. And this is why, this is my credibility. So it could be a whole bunch of different reasons, but if you get those goals confused, that's when you're going to have issues, because that's when you could alienate your target audience, right? So if you're doing it for sales, but you're really writing to a recruiter and showcasing yourself like a job seeker, why would anyone want to work with you? It's clear that you're going to be jumping shortly, right? And vice versa, right? Who wants to work with you and hire you if you're just selling and selling and selling? So it's really important to make sure that your goals are aligned with your narrative.
And I mean, when would you say should someone reach out to someone like you for your services? Like what's a good timing? For example, like if they're looking for some sort of a change, or if they've just created their profile, like in my son's case, or when is a good time?
I will tell you this, Tatiana. Typically, when people reach out to me, something cataclysmic has happened.
It has gone wrong already. Yes.
Something has happened. And typically they've been handed that cardboard box, right? So they've been laid off, or they've missed a promotion, or a press release is going out, or they've lost a huge client. Or they're looking for investors, or so typically something has happened, and suddenly that person is saying to themselves, "Ooh, people are looking at me on LinkedIn. I need to use this as a tool, and I'm not presenting myself well." So typically something like that has happened, which is fine, right? But I love it when people want to dig their well before they're thirsty. So
I love that.
Yeah. So for me, it's I love it when a person says, "I'm happy where I am. I've got everything is right, but let's make sure I look good, because I want to make sure that I'm going to be on top of it when something may happen, or I'm on top of it so nothing happens."
And also, I think it's really, I'm going to make an analogy here with my line of work. So with premium domain names, and exactly as you were saying that, I had like flashing lights in my head where I have the same thing. Like most of the time, more than 90% of the cases, people come when they have a problem already, when they feel like, there's an issue, they're losing clients, they're missing emails, they have security issues, something. And now they're looking for the best domain name for their brand. And like you say, it's okay, you try and you can help, but ideally it should be managed before. And exactly like you mentioned, in a way, it's a personal, not in a way, but it's a personal brand. So ideally you should be building it and managing it before that.
Yeah.
And also, like you say, when somebody feels like everything is okay, but let's look at that LinkedIn profile, or in my case, I feel like it's okay, but let's look at that domain name or my domain name strategy. How can it be better? You may realize, and most likely will realize, that you're actually missing out on opportunities that you don't even know are there because your profile is not optimized.
Yeah. It's strange, but you're absolutely right. And, I love helping people, period. I mean, every time the phone rings and I get to talk to someone about, their view, their vision, their goals, where they want to go, helping them understand their value, their story. I mean, I love it. It really fuels me. But I also love it when a person calls me and says, I'm challenged. I love what I'm doing. But I want to make sure that, I'm representing myself and aligning myself to my vision now. Because a lot of times people find that they're stuck or they're pigeonholed, and they don't know why. They come up with excuses like, maybe it's this type of discrimination, or maybe they just don't like me, or maybe these people are mean. But the truth of the matter is, more often than not, you've branded yourself so perfectly for where you are that no one can see you outside of that. And if you do want to advance in your career, if you want to continue to grow and you want to be offered new opportunities, you can't brand yourself perfectly for where you are. You've got to always keep expanding that and aligning it to new opportunities and a future vision of yourself, because that's what's going to propel you forward, and it's not going to anchor you to where you are right now.
I love that. Yeah, preparing yourself for the future vision where you want to be. And that's, again, it really applies to what I do as well. I love when I can draw those parallels, but it's very much that. And I think it applies to branding in general. And that's why I can see so many connections there with what I do, where, I would have a company or an entrepreneur who's launched a company talking about, we're small, we're not ready yet, we just launched, we're testing things, but we want to be X in 5 years or 10 years, and you have to have that, because otherwise how can you get to that if you don't see that path and you don't put those bricks to get to there?
It's hard, but it is hard, and I think that's why people do need to turn to someone like yourself, someone like me, where I find that in today's age, we start to have those deep thoughts. Where have I been? Where am I going? What do I love? What do I hate? What really fuels my soul? And we start to have these deep thoughts, and we turn on the TV or we look in our smartphone, because it puts us into an awkward state. Right. And you do anything to get back to where you feel comfortable. And in some ways you do need that person to kind of direct you and lead you and make you feel comfortable as you're in this moment of flux.
Absolutely. How does it differ when you are dealing with like your brand, your personal brand effectively on LinkedIn, and when we talk about companies?
The one thing that I've loved watching is how companies are now looking at their employee brand in a different manner than ever before. When I first started the company, I was shocked at how many executives flocked to our service. Like, I really thought it was going to be like small business owners and sales professionals. Like, that's who I thought my target audience was. But instead, these executives were coming, and they recognized the importance of brand and story and really, crafting and cultivating that persona. They recognized it almost innately. And so, of course, they came for help with LinkedIn and their profile and their story. But I would say, all right, we've made you look good. Now let's look at your executive team. Let's look at your employees. Let's make sure they look good. And back then, the thought was, oh, I want them to look terrible on LinkedIn because I don't want them poached. and that it was really hard, because I would try to say to them, look, you might be turning off recruiters, but you're turning off prospects and partnerships and investors and clients. Like, you don't recognize everyone who's looking at these people, because they are representative and they are ambassadors to your brand. So you can't just ignore that. And so I have to say, it was probably, for me, the turning point was like 2016 when Microsoft purchased LinkedIn. That really began to legitimize the whole concept of branding on LinkedIn, and people started to see the bigger picture. And so now I'm finding that companies are coming and saying, we want to lift our employees. We want to empower them to have their own brand. And we want to spotlight it, but we also would love to make sure that it is woven and incorporated into the company brand as well. And by doing that, and doing it in a really strategic way where it's not, hey, copy and paste a resume and yes, get poached, but let's really tell your story. It's empowering their employees and good things are happening, and it's affecting the employee as well as the company in a very, very positive, fruitful way.
Absolutely. And yeah, definitely. I mean, over time, I think that has not only on LinkedIn, but obviously that flows into that as well, how like it almost feels like, 10, 15 years ago, maybe people would rarely even connect the employees to the company. Like the brand was there and, everything else was over there. And now it's we have all become so much more demanding and everything is so much more accessible and transparent.
Yeah.
I think it's really actually almost like you can spend millions on building that wonderful brand and story. And then if people look at the employees and that doesn't match, it's just like the whole thing falls to pieces.
It does. And it's so easy to now, right? At one time, you're right. You couldn't easily see who worked at this organization. But with LinkedIn, you go to the company page, you click on the people tab and you've got the list. Not only do you see the current employees, you can see the past employees. And not only that, but you can even drill in even deeper and go straight to their profile, see who they know, where they've worked. It's amazing the research a person can do. And people have changed, right? Like at one time, companies were like, well, job seeker, you better look good for us. We're looking at you. You better look good if you want us to even consider hiring you. Well, the tables have changed, right? Now these job seekers, they've grown up with the internet and smartphones. Like they've been steeped in this from such an early age. They're now looking back and going, okay, you want to hire me? You better look good. Why should I work for you? Who am I working near? What does that team look like? Are they going to be challenging? Is this fulfilling work? Am I doing good for the world? It's the tables have drastically changed.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like everywhere. I'm bringing up my kids into the into the story, but I'm looking at the way they look at everything. It's so much more critical than we did. I feel old now, but with the access to information and with maybe it's also that the fact that everything is so digitalized now. It's so much cheaper and easier to travel that people, like every potential employee effectively, doesn't feel limited to any particular country or industry. Even it's so easy to switch even across industries, let alone in the same industry and the hierarchy and everything. So like you say, that it has switched to you have to really present yourself. Not just present yourself, you have to be a good company to work with and make sure that's really out there and visible so that, you can even, you don't have employees, you don't really have a company.
Yeah. And I think in some ways, the tenure that employees are spending at companies has really shrunk, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's not that 30-year tenure and the gold watch at the end. People are staying shorter and they're I don't want to say they're bouncing around, but there's value to that too. It's knowing that you have these skill sets and this knowledge and to be able to say, I've worked at all of these different organizations. I can take the best of all of these different worlds and bring that to you. And I think that's very, very exciting.
Definitely. It reminds me, it's a funny thing, but because I'm in France and there's that, that you have that reputation of the French, like even like when they're in a couple or they're married, they're still like looking around. And we've had like at the beginning of our relationship, those talks with my husband, and he told me something which I actually love. and it's indicative of French culture, but I think it's very applicable to this situation with, brands and companies and employees, where he was like, well, if you're looking around all the time, in a way, you're always choosing that person that you're still with. So in a way, it's almost like it's a compliment. I'm not just with you because I was with you 5 years ago. It's like I'm with you because I chose you today, just like I did the first day, because I'm looking around and, I don't see anyone better. So in a way, with the companies, I think with the ease of which people can switch positions and places and countries, it's an ongoing thing to work on both ways of that relationship to be the best for each other over time.
Yeah, and it's saying I don't want to take you for granted, and I don't want you to take me for granted.
Exactly. And I think that
let's continue to earn this.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that logic, which it's a very French in nature, but I do love it because it doesn't take things for granted, and especially nowadays, like we said, it's so easy to see through things. So you really have to be authentic. Yeah. And keep doing that every day.
But isn't there also that feeling of you want to work with people who are empowered and they know their worth, know their value, they know what they bring to the table?
Absolutely.
I mean, that is that empowerment is attractive. You don't want to work with someone who's like, all right, I can be everyone, anything for anybody. And, please pick me,
Yeah. Let me stay. I'm always going to be here. I'm little doggy.
And that to me also feels kind of like a French, like when you think of a French woman, like she carries herself with that confidence and that, and I can even, taking what you had said, I can apply that to this idea as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the thing is, it's you see, and I think you probably can apply that to LinkedIn profiles. Hold on a minute, I'm gonna get there. But no, you can see you have people who are naturally beautiful. Like there's genes and plastic surgery, But you have that. But let's stick to natural. You're just beautiful But if you don't have that, like I said, that character, that confidence, that, I know what I'm doing, I know what I want, it just falls apart.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. And it's a similar thing, I guess in a way, that's what branding is about. It's, it's one thing what you have, and another thing what you do with it, and a third thing how you present that to the world.
Yeah. And I think it's being very strategic up front to say, who is my target audience? What are my keywords? What does my target audience need to know about me? How do I want to present myself? And then you can tell a story and even a robust one at that. But because it's been so well thought out and it's truly targeted and positioned, it comes across authentic and natural and it feels right. Whereas if you just explode and you throw everything in it, then you come across as desperate or disjointed or frayed or fractured, right?
Yeah. How do you feel? We actually just touched on some things that have changed over time on how people present and companies present and should present themselves on LinkedIn. And you've been doing that, you said, since 2009. So how do you feel other things that have changed that you feel are worth mentioning?
One of the things that I love about, that's recently, I hate to say recent, but in a way it has been rather recent with LinkedIn is it's now not just the profile. For a long time, you could be very passive on the LinkedIn platform. You could have a strong profile and you
just leave it there. Yeah.
Yeah. Just leave it there. You turn up and search and life was good. And believe me, that was nice. But I do like the idea now that there's a lot more to do with content and actual networking, right? Because networking is relating to people. It's that back and forth. It's making those connections. It's that engagement. And And we're now seeing that. We see that every day on the LinkedIn feed. And so, yes, you have that strong profile, but now it's your turn. You can go in, you can post, you can educate, you can add value, you can tell stories, you can ask for advice, you can give advice, you can mentor, and then you can jump into the comments of your network and engage and converse as well. And I love that. I love that it's now really, truly networking.
Is there some kind of a, like, I don't know, magic, perfect way to do that in terms of like engagement and posting and commenting? How does that work?
I think for most people, when they think of LinkedIn and they think of, oh my goodness, now I suddenly need to get active. There's this like paralysis that sets in. And really, I think the very first thing a person, if they're going to start to get active, they're going to get loud on LinkedIn. The very first step is really to remain quiet and just scroll through the feed and just start reading it, scrolling through it, getting familiar with it. Then once you're familiar, still not posting. It's now engaging with what's already there. So it's conversing, it's commenting, it's spending a lot of time just in the comments and getting that, that engagement going. Once you're good there, that's when you start to post. And, it's not like the other networks out there. You don't have to do it every day. Yes, it's great if you can. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you can do it every day. But I think for a lot of people, if you could do it 3 times a week, if you could do it twice a week, if you can do it once a week, if you can do it once every 2 weeks, it's fine. Just make sure that you're posting with some type of a consistency and some type of a frequency, and decide what makes sense for you. It's not the quantity, it's the quality. And the real quality, the real measure of quality is, does it attract engagement? So when you do post, make sure you're asking questions. Make sure you've created something that gives them a chance to respond. And then if you can have those conversations in the comments, you're forging relationships. You are essentially networking at that point.
I noticed a thing which I hate actually in any network, but I feel like it wasn't much the case with LinkedIn, and now it's becoming a thing where you have, I'm trying to put a word on it, but it's fake basically. It's those posts that don't feel authentic at all. It's like they follow a format, probably has to do something with ChatGPT as well, but they follow a certain format, and they're very, like, there's a lot of fluff, but actually like you get to the end of it and you're like, what did I just read? Like what's the, and I feel it's like when people are trying to actually sell or promote something, but they're trying to make it feel like they're not. And I don't know if it's just me that's like getting allergic to that, but like, what are your thoughts on that, and why do people do it?
I know. And if you look at LinkedIn, I feel like the man behind the curtain on LinkedIn dialing in the algorithm, like you can almost sense these waves and ebbs and flows of the algorithm, because there was that time when there were those like really cringy broetry type of posts. And then suddenly that kind of dialed back. And then you got these people who are heroes who are giving money and aren't I good? Let me pat myself on the back. And then that seemed to go away. And then you get the crying CEO and there's people crying on LinkedIn. And you're like, oh my God, is it worth it? Are any views worth that? But that then got dialed back, and now we're getting, a different. So there is an algorithm, but ultimately what I find is you can train the algorithm. LinkedIn wants that feed to be sticky. What that means is they don't want you leaving. They want you to stay there and they want you to scroll through. They want that feed to be the people you know talking about the things you care about. And so if you can almost just say, look, let me just focus in on my network, my target audience, and let me authentically, organically, very naturally talk about the things that I care about, the things that my audience cares about. Let me try to be as helpful. Let me try to be as inspiring, as motivational as I can be. And if that's one post every 2 weeks, fabulous. I'm not going to say anything bad about that. That's fabulous. But go in there with the desire to add value. And you will do fine. You will do better than fine. Will you be getting 100,000 likes? No, you weren't crying. That's okay.
Well, that's another thing. Yeah, that I'm actually not a huge fan of the, people get like crazy about, the likes, the shares, and, oh my God. And it's like, what did that actually translate into?
What was there any conversion? Yes, you got a lot of eyeballs, but what was the conversion? And ultimately, I do think this is not a wham bam, like fast type of thing. This is a long-term strategy for relationships, for your reputation, and it builds and develops over time.
On that, last question, I think it's going to be the next question, but because like you just said, it is a strategy and it does go over time, and also people change. And I would imagine if you really look at it as a personal brand, which it is, that can change over time as well. You change
it should.
What you do and what you, yeah. So how does that work with you? Like, how does the process look like? If somebody contacts you, how long does it take? What does it look like?
Yeah. So people come to us for a profile. People come to us for a profile and a resume. Some people come to us for a profile and ghost blogging and LinkedIn strategy. So it really depends upon what they're coming to us for. But ultimately, we're creating a profile. We're creating a career brand for them right now that aligns to their current vision, their current career vision or goals. And I do want that to change. I hope that changes, because that means that they're expanding and growing and developing as a professional, as an executive. And so when they are ready, and everyone knows when they're ready, it's sometimes it's 3 months, sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's a year. For some people, it might be 5 years. I hate when it's 5 years, but they come back. They come back, and we have services for our returning clients. And having been doing this since 2009, I love being embedded in people's careers and being there for them and watching them, grow and develop and pivot and leapfrog in their career. And we're there to help them tell that story along the way.
Wonderful. That's a lovely way to end that. I love that. Great. Well, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll include the links to where people can find you with the interview. And that's been lovely.
Great. Thank you so much, Tatiana. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us in this episode of Smart Branding Podcast. Feel free to visit smartbranding.com for more information and reach out if you have any suggestions, questions, ideas, or just want to learn more about how a good domain name strategy can help you build a strong and successful brand. See you next time.